Hello everyone, I'm your host Rich Hagan, welcoming you to another episode of Inside R&D from Inside R&D, here at the home of Wizards of the Coast in Renton, Washington. Close your eyes. Imagine a pristine world of clean energy, endless invention, electric blue skies, sumptuous wonders, and limitless possibilities. Open your eyes. Welcome to Kaladesh.
One of the hardest things about my job is I do things that I'm really proud of, and then I have to sit on it for like 16 months, sometimes years. Like I do things I'm really happy with, and then I can't talk about them forever. And finally, I'm able to talk about them. So what I want to say is, Kaladesh! Awesome! It's awesome!
We've gone through Battle for Zendikar, we've gone through Shadows of Innistrad. Those are dark, dark places. Kaladesh is a much more happy place.
Basically, the idea was that we wanted to go someplace that was bright and sunny, something that wasn't that we had just been, we had this drag-out war where Zendikar was being just destroyed, and then we go to Innistrad where everyone's going mad, it's really dark, and we're like, we want to do something fun and bright and optimistic and happy, and we said, you know what? Let's go to Chandra's world.
Magic is a game about fighting, and Kaladesh is an inherently optimistic world. So kind of where do those things meet? And it was a challenge. There are some colors that celebrate destruction more than other colors. But no matter what it was, we always want to emphasize the ingenuity that went into whatever the machine was that was doing the thing.
Normally, we have new worlds and we have revisits. When I revisit a world, we've been there and we have lots of art and we have all sorts of things to look at. But normally when I do a new world, it's like, who knows? I'm the first person, my team's the first one usually to touch it, and that there's no idea. That we've talked about things, but because of Magic Origins, because we'd actually spent some time and energy figuring out what the world looked like, I actually started with some sort of ideas of what the world was, and that was infinitely helpful.
Steampunk was kind of a word that was a hook, something that we hung ideas on for a while, and realized that we had really kind of outgrown or gone beyond. How
do you take steampunk and make it upbeat? And the joke we had is, take out the steam and take out the punk.
We didn't want any of the steampunk, gritty, grimy, polluted tropes. We wanted this to be brilliant, a brilliant world, something aspirational and optimistic and just somewhere you would want to go and love and live. And we were very inspired by the culture of India. And so those two things sort of melded and fused together to lay the backdrop for this world. Kaladesh has 5 races that we sort of created for it to populate this world. And some of them, like the elves, we've seen on Magic settings before. So one of the challenges when you're taking a race like the elves that people know from Zendikar, for example, we didn't want these to feel like Zendikar elves. We wanted these to feel like Kaladesh elves. So one of the ways that we did this for all of our races here was we designed them around what we called the ether cycle. So we said each race has a very specific spot in the cycle, and that's going to help define what that race does.
Elves traditionally, are these ancient beings that are known for their wisdom and their harmony with nature. And on some level, that's part of what elves are. So we had to figure out, how do we take elves and put them here? And we knew pretty early on we didn't want them to be at odds so much with society, that we wanted, again, keep in line with this optimism, this sense of optimism. So it really became that elves understood the interplay of ether and nature and even urban life. They understood how that all fits together kind of in a natural way. I think elves living in the cities of Kaladesh, in Girapur, it's not an abomination of nature to see, these cities rise up. Instead, they help shape these cities to be in harmony with these things. They see the world in a way that the other races just don't see it.
Blue has this ideal of perfection in general, but for the Vedalken here, we kind of turn that on its head, where they rejoice in finding imperfections. They get very excited about finding an inefficiency in a system or a gear out of place because that means they can fix it. That means they can make it better. And they know things can never actually be perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. But every time they find a little flaw, they get to come one step closer to perfecting it. And it's the process of perfecting and making things just a little bit better that they take joy in.
From innovate, you get to the build step. Obviously, once you have this idea for the machine or a device or whatever it is, you have to execute on that. And there is nobody better to do that than dwarves. One of the big dwarf tropes is the idea of craftsmanship. And this is exactly what the dwarves are all about. Like, one of the quotes about them is, if there's no higher mark of quality than it being dwarf built.
They are airship captains. They trust in their invention so fully that it makes them seem like they're fearless, because they will get on the highest flying ships. They will go, take the rockets. They will ride around Oval Chase Arena in their race cars, because they've built them, and dwarf built is just, you cannot beat it. This is the best thing on Kaladesh.
Their legacy is an object that they have built that will outlast them. They speak of these things that they built like they would speak of their own children.
The fourth race, as we're going around the ether cycle, are the gremlins, and they actually represent the liberate step of the ether cycle. So after the dwarves build it, sometimes you need a race that's going to allow you to get that ether back out into the environment so that you can eventually start the cycle all over again. So this is where we depend on our gremlins.
Who would be the mischievous ones here? It's like we could go goblins. There are a lot of tradition of goblin tinkers and so on and things like that. And I think that we ultimately went with gremlins because we're pretty enamored with the kind of World War II concept of the gremlins, of the ones, eating the airplanes and causing all these mayhem to equipment, and it just felt right here. We have airships here, and we wanted to play in that space of just carving out something new for Kaladesh.
Kaladesh is probably our most optimistic setting ever. We knew going in that we wanted bright colors, blue skies, that we wanted this technology that they have to be non-polluting. This is a clean industrial revolution. It is a clean place. But that presented some problems for things that we do in every Magic set. One of those is the color black. So as we were tackling that, we're like, vampires? Vampires don't really feel right here. Undead like zombies, that doesn't seem to fit. We decided pretty early on we're going to need to make a new black-aligned race.
The Aetherborn are a really strange race that come into existence as a byproduct of the refinement of ether. When ether is gathered in and whatever impurities are removed from it, or whatever instability is extracted in the refinement process, the Aetherborn are what's left. They take on intelligence and personality and life, and live a very short, fleeting life until ultimately ether released from its confines and artifacts recombines with them and goes back to being the free ether in the ether sphere. It's very strange.
The creation of the ether cycle, and in particular the Aetherborn, was really exciting for me. This was the first set that I was involved in from the very beginning, from world building, and it actually, one of the things that I came up with was the race of Aetherborn and the way that energy could be refined on this world. So part of my personal history is that I'm a scientist before I came here, and so a lot of that came into play. It was so much fun to think about what would the actual chemical reaction be. I have so many different equations scribbled in my notebooks of like what would actually be happening. What is ether? What are the what are the free radicals doing here? What is the Aetherborn actually? What is the process of decay? The rate of decay? All of that kind of stuff.
I think it's fair to say that in Shadows of Innistrad, where most of the monsters that people confronted, or that confronted people, were essentially extensions of humanity. Whereas on Kaladesh, I think you do get the opposite. You do get this sense of humanity here is confronted with limitless possibilities, that you could build your way to anything. And that's something that is expressed in the gameplay, that is something that is definitely in the world building, that anything is buildable.